Spanish is spoken by more than 300 million people in over 20 countries and is rapidly becoming one of the most popular choices for language learners around the world. A popular course for beginners, Sueños World Spanish is designed to meet the varied needs of adult learners, whether learning at home or in a class. From the very beginning, it encourages you to develop your listening and speaking skills with confidence and provides many opportunities to practice reading in Spanish. Using the extensive range of media available, from the course book to the audio CDs or cassettes, to the popular accompanying television series and free online activities, Sueños World Spanish can help you reach the equivalent level of a first qualification, such as GCSE. The presentation will cover copyright's position as one of the intellectual property rights and how it differs from other intellectual property rights. It will give an overview of what copyright protects as well as what may be done with copyright-protected works without permission under permitted acts. It is by manipulating the restricted acts through licensing arrangements that rights owners establish and exploit commercial markets. In contrast to commercial markets, the growth of open source and open content licensing models has challenged established business models. The presentation gives a brief commentary on two of the more prominent open licensing frameworks, the GNU Creative Commons licenses.
The speed of sound, otherwise known as Mach 1, varies with temperature. At sea level on a standard day, the temperature is 59 degrees Fahrenheit, and Mach 1 is approximately 761 mph. As the altitude increases, the temperature and speed of sound both decrease until about 36,000 feet, after which the temperature remains steady until about 60,000 feet. Within that 36,000 to 60,000 foot range, Mach 1 is about 661 miles per hour. Because of the variation, it is possible for an airplane flying supersonic at high altitude to be slower than a subsonic flight at sea level. The transonic band, the sound barrier, extends from around Mach 0.8, when the first supersonic shock waves form on the wing, to Mach 1.2, when the entire wing has gone supersonic. Individual human beings are relatively powerless creatures, no match for lions or bears. It's what they can do as groups that has enabled them to take over the planet. These groupings, corporations, religions, states are now part of a vast network of interconnected information flows. Finding points of resistance, where smaller units can stand up to the waves of information washing around the globe, is becoming harder all the time.
Used in a variety of courses in various disciplines, asking the right questions helps students bridge the gap between simply memorizing or blindly accepting information, and the greater challenge of critical analysis and synthesis. Specifically, this concise text teaches students to think critically by exploring the components of arguments, issues, conclusions, reasons, evidence, assumptions, language, and on how to spot fallacies and manipulations and obstacles to critical thinking in both written and visual communication. It teaches them to respond to alternative points of view and develop a solid foundation for making personal choices about what to accept and what to reject.
First, the scientific community that studies climate change is quietly panic-stricken, because things are moving much faster than they expected. Greenhouse gas emissions are going up faster than predicted, both from industrializing countries in Asia and from melting permafrost in Siberia and Canada. The Arctic sea ice is melting so fast that the whole ocean may be ice-free in late summer in 5 years' time. Most climate scientists now see last year's report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, whose forecasts are used by most governments for planning purposes, as a purely historical document. Second, the biggest early impact of global warming will be on the food supply, both locally and globally. When the global average temperature hits 1.5 degrees hotter, and it will, the carbon dioxide already in the atmosphere commits us to that much warming. Some countries will no longer be able to feed their people. Others, further from the equator, will still have enough food for themselves, but none to spare. Short-term memory, SMT, can hold information anywhere between 15 to 30 seconds. According to Miller's magical number 7, 1956, short-term memory has a limited capacity, being able to store 5 to 9 items simultaneously. However, if we hear concepts or ideas repeatedly in an audio form, we can acoustically encode the information. It is a process referred to as rehearsal, thereby committing it to our long-term memories.
As digitalization and smart automation progress, many will see their jobs altered. Advances in automation technologies will mean that people will increasingly work side by side with robots, smart automation, and artificial intelligence. Businesses will look for employees who are good at the tasks that smart automation struggles to do and that add value to the use of smart automation. In the past, technological progress has had a positive impact on our society, increasing labor productivity, wages, and prosperity. Right now, a new technological wave of digitalization and smart automation, combinations of artificial intelligence, robotics, and other technologies, is fundamentally transforming the way we work, at an unprecedented pace. For example, data analytics, the Internet of Things, and drones are already used in many industries to make production processes better, faster, and cheaper. We already see shifts in the structure of employment, in industries, tasks, educational levels, and skills.
Computer viruses have been a fact of life at least since the 1980s, if not before. They can cause companies to lose hours of working time, and they can also spread panic among computer users everywhere. There are, however, several distinct types of computer infection, all loosely referred to as viruses, and they each work in a slightly different way. A particularly nasty one is the worm, which is a program designed to sneak its way into an entire computer network and reproduce itself over and over again. Then there is the Trojan, which strictly speaking isn't a virus, but a piece of software that appears to do one thing, but actually does something malicious instead.
When the unsuspecting operator introduces it into the computer, the alien program will take over the machine. With Trojans, you have to be particularly careful because they can often be introduced by way of a message advertising an antivirus product. So, what motivates someone to introduce a virus into the computer systems of innocent victims? Perhaps it's simply the desire to prove that it can be done. Or because it gives the kind of pleasure you get from solving a difficult problem. Nowadays, people protect their computers with all sorts of security software, so it takes considerable skill to break through all the defenses and introduce a virus. The primary goal for this year-long campaign, founded by the English lawyer Peter Benenson and a small group of writers, academics and lawyers including Quaker peace activist Eric Baker, was to identify individual prisoners of conscience around the world and then campaign for their release. In early 1962, the campaign had received enough public support to become a permanent organization and was renamed Amnesty International. Under British law, Amnesty International was classed as a political organization and therefore excluded from tax-free charity status. To work around this, the Fund for the Persecuted was established in 1962 to receive donations to support prisoners and their families.
The name was later changed to the Prisoners of Conscience Appeal Fund and is now a separate and independent charity which provides relief and rehabilitation grants to prisoners of conscience in the UK and around the world. Amnesty International has, since its founding, pressured governments to release those persons it considers to be prisoners of conscience. Governments, conversely, tend to deny that the specific prisoners identified by Amnesty International are, in fact, being held on the grounds Amnesty claims. They allege that these prisoners pose genuine threats to the security of their countries. The concept of prisoners of conscience became a controversy around Nelson Mandela's imprisonment. Nissan will overhaul the inspection process for its Japan-destined vehicles for the first time in decades as the carmaker seeks to address a widening inspection scandal that has forced it to suspend production for the domestic market. The company said on Thursday that unauthorized workers had been certifying vehicles set for sale in the Japanese market, even after the company announced the recall of nearly 1.2 million cars earlier this month over the same issue. With investors increasingly concerned about Japan Inc.'s adherence to standards, concerns that were most recently inflamed by the Kobe Steel data falsification scandal, the news pushed Nissan shares down 1.6% on Friday, and also weighed on the prices of its suppliers. Hiroto Saikawa, Nissan's chief executive, pledged drastic measures to deal with the problem, namely the suspension of vehicle production for the home market at all 6 factories in Japan run by the company and its affiliate, Nissan Shitai.
The heart functions as a pump at the center of the circulatory system. In humans, it is located in the chest cavity, between the lungs, a bit to the left. The heart consists of 4 chambers surrounded by a very strong muscular wall, the myocardium. The upper chambers, the right and left atria, receive blood entering the heart, and the lower chambers, the right and left ventricles, pump the blood out of the heart, via the pulmonary and the systemic circulatory systems. The 2 systems work as follows. Blood from the body enters the right atrium, is passed into the right ventricle, and from there is propelled through the pulmonary artery to the lungs. In the lungs, the blood releases carbon dioxide and absorbs oxygen and is then transported back to the heart into the left atrium. From here it passes into the left ventricle, which pumps the oxygenated blood around the body.
The thing that makes it difficult is because even if life had evolved on Mars, the chances of being preserved are very small. If we use Earth as a reference, and our planet is teeming with life, yet it rarely preserves evidence of life of the fossil record. And the focus now is on exploring for habitable environments. If you're looking for water, a source of energy, either solar energy or thermal energy or chemical energy, and then, organic carbon, assuming life as we know it on Earth based on carbon. So those are sort of the three things that we're looking for in the course of our mission. How quickly this occurs depends on the dynamics of fertility, mortality and overseas migration. While a moderate pace of demographic change allows for gradual adjustment of the economy and policies to the changing population demographics, rapid changes are more difficult to manage. One way of applying a degree of perspective to the aging debate is to compare aging in Australia with that of other countries. This article examines the population structures in Australia and Japan and the demographic forces that shape the respective populations, both historically and projections for the future. The aging of the population is a major issue for Australian policymakers, particularly in regard to the long-term implications for reduced economic growth and the increasing demand for age pensions, and health and aged care services. As the population ages, growth in the number of people of working age will slow, while the proportion of people of retirement age will increase. Sustained population aging also leads to slowing or negative population growth. While declining population growth in developed countries is welcomed by some environmentalists and social scientists, economists tend to agree that population decline brings gloomy economic prospects. To put true creative power into the hands of any ordinary 3D printer owner, Gannon has developed an innovative new system called Tactum. Tactum is a new type of software that lets users create their own unique designs for 3D printers by simply touching a projected image. Using their innate hand gestures, someone using Tactum can poke, rub and otherwise manipulate the projected image that will become their 3D printed object, and see it instantly change shape in response. In keeping with the goal of democratizing the process, Gannon designed her first series of Tactum artifacts on a surface. Madeline Gannon is a researcher, teacher at the Carnegie Mellon University School of Architecture and PhD candidate in computational design, but that's not all. She is on a mission to open up the infinite design possibilities of 3D printing to the world. Currently you have to have a lot of technical background in order to participate in creating things for 3D printers, Gannon says. There is still a huge knowledge barrier for how we create digital models. As the technology has advanced, prices have plummeted, and now anyone can buy a 3D printer for a few $100s, Gannon notes. The ways of life upper Paleolithic people are known through the remains of meals scattered around their hearths, together with many tools and weapons and the debris left over from their making. The people were hunter-gatherers who lived exclusively from what they could find in nature without practicing either agriculture or herding. They hunted the bigger herbivores, while berries, leaves, roots, wild fruit and mushrooms probably played a major role in their diet. Their hunting was indiscriminate, perhaps because so many animals were about they did not need to spare pregnant females or the young. The process of researching and securing a dig site can take years. Digging is the field work of archaeology. On occasion, archaeologists might need to move earth with bulldozers and backhoes. Usually, however, archaeologists use tools such as brushes, hand shovels, and even toothbrushes to scrape away the earth around artifacts. The most common tool that archaeologists use to dig is a flat trowel. A trowel is a handheld shovel used for smoothing as well as digging. Archaeologists use trowels to slowly scrape away soil. For very small or delicate remains, archaeologists might also dig with dental picks, spoons, or very fine blades.
In a sustainable world that is achievable in the near future, water and related resources are managed in support of human well-being and ecosystem integrity in a robust economy. Sufficient and safe water is made available to meet every person's basic needs, with healthy lifestyles and behaviors easily upheld through reliable and affordable water supply and sanitation services, in turn supported by equitably extended and efficiently managed infrastructure. Water resources management, infrastructure and service delivery are sustainably financed.
Life in the UK 2012 provides a unique overview of well-being in the UK today. The report is the first snapshot of life in the UK to be delivered by the Measuring National Wellbeing Programme and will be updated and published annually. Well-being is discussed in terms of the economy, people and the environment. Information such as the unemployment rate or number of crimes against the person are presented alongside data on people's thoughts and feelings, for example, satisfaction with our jobs or leisure time and fear of crime. Together, a richer picture on how society is doing is provided.
There are so many reasons why, from fast food marketing to agriculture subsidies, but one contributing factor is the slow death of cooking, and the rise of the restaurant meal. Americans now spend more on food at restaurants than they do at grocery stores, but restaurant food tends to have even less fiber than the food we would otherwise eat at home. One problem seems to be that restaurant meals aren't typically loaded with two of the best sources of fiber, unprocessed fruits and vegetables. A revealing study from 2007, in which researchers interviewed 41 restaurant executives, showed that restaurants think fruits and vegetables are too expensive to feature prominently on the menu, and 61% said profits drive menu selections.
A massive tow truck worked Saturday to remove the remains of a burned-out oil tanker that exploded in a giant fireball overnight near the capital of Sierra Leone. Reuters' David Doyle has more. Deputy Health Minister Amara Jambai said the death toll currently stands at 99, with more than 100 people being treated in hospitals and clinics across the capital, Freetown. In a video from the scene shared online, the head of the National Disaster Management Agency, Brima Biosizi, said, "We've got so many casualties, burnt corpses," adding, "It's a terrible, terrible accident." Freetown's mayor said the extent of the damage from Friday's explosion was not yet known, adding that police and her deputy were at the scene to assist disaster management officials.